Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Trailer Park. It is a little icy and a little cold in this neck of the woods, but I'm hoping for spring soon. But Beth, all the way in Pennsylvania there, how's it going over there? You haven't froze out yet, have you?
Peachy. We just have rain.
Okay, well, we had a rain warning, but I still see a shit ton of snow out there.
Yeah, we haven't. It may snow during the night, but like the other day, someone goes, "Well, what's the weather like?" And this was like 7 o'clock at night. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't been outside yet. My outside consists of walking across the post office parking lot to Sheets, which is really about all I can do right now. But
Well, if folks remember, Beth broke her ankle last week, so she's but at least you have a cast that you can get around in now.
yes, I've adjusted to this piece of hardware on my foot and ankle. It's very odd, and I'm not having trouble sleeping with it, which is surprising, but it's actually a good thing because that's the foot I also have severe tendonitis in. So I'm getting kind of a double benefit from it. But walking is a little weird because I still have the dizzy bouts from my strokes. So, but yeah, it's a little weird because I can't crutch. And the first thing I said to the doctor was like, "Well, we're gonna have to figure this out," because I said I can't crutch. I have to have my paresis on the right side. I said, "There's no way I can support my weight." And he goes, "That's fine." He goes, "A couple days you'll be walking on it." So
That's good.
put the cast on.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Should make a stipulation.
Start dancing around on your broken ankle.
Yeah, but really, other than just trying to figure out how to sit and walk comfortably where I'm not tripping over myself. When I go outside, except to the Sheets, I will take my cane because my balance sucks. So, but it's kind of interesting. It's like I didn't have this much trouble the last time I broke this ankle. That was 25 years ago, though.
Oh, well, before we get into it, let me introduce our guest all the way from Tennessee. Good evening, Gayle.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Again, it's been a little while.
It has been.
Yeah. Before we jump into everything about Gayle, I was going to mention that I had a bit of an interesting time at the end of last week. I got debating what I would characterize as a racist, homophobic, transphobic, sexist guy.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, and so this was just on a Facebook group, doing the typey thing and whatnot, and I was, just horsing around, whatever, and all of a sudden he's like, "Let's voice chat." Pardon? Why would you want to do that? Well, it'd be fun. I'm like, well, look, I'm on my way to bed, so not right now, but maybe another time. So I ended up talking to this guy on a hangout, debating him for, I think it was close to 2 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like 2 hours, 10 minutes.
Yeah. An experience, I have to say. I mean, I know these assholes are out there, but I never actually really with one. And mama.
What I found really interesting about your debate, and this kind of crosses over, is that he has, and not just specifically him, they have all these talking points. Yes. And I've been breaking the debate down.
Oh, have you?
Yes, because I want to. He made a whole bunch of claims.
Yeah.
And what I found fascinating, every single one of those claims are gussied up religious right-wing claims.
Yeah.
He used Pamela Geller.
You might be confused by that, but this guy professed also to be an atheist.
Yes.
That's why.
Yeah. I should have mentioned that. But he used Pamela Geller as source. Now, he did not cite any of his sources.
Oh, and
his arguments were so obvious.
My favorite part, though, was I spent hours getting sources for all my rebuttals. So I had all kinds, and I had stuff from the American Psychiatric Association, the American
Too
Medical
liberal.
Association, and yeah, and I start because his whole, that's that whole transgender people are mentally ill bullshit. So I'm like getting the whole medical definition out, and he's like, "Oh, from your liberal source." I'm like, "It's Psychiatric Association." Experts, dumbass. But no, he didn't want to see any of my sources, but he could just spout whatever. Oh, because then when I was like, okay, where's your information that can demonstrate that what you're saying is true? Oh, I'm not going to do your homework for you.
Yeah.
I'm like, I literally spent fucking hours researching this shit for you. That you just go, oh, it's liberal, and now you don't bite me.
But what I was saying is that all his sources, though, if you are familiar with the material, are all common right-wing sources. They're all religious in nature or come from religious sources. Sullins and Regeneris for homosexuality, that we make really lousy parents. I don't know about me. I don't have children. Gail could speak to that. As far as being an atheist, and it just every single one. I think the only one that really wasn't right-wing was the colonialization of Africa was a good thing.
Yeah, that crap.
It was funny because it just was like, you claim atheism, but you're using religious sources. So that leads me to surmise that the only reason you're using religious sources is because they already agree with what you believe. So it's like a big circle.
So put it this way, Gail, are you familiar with who Sargon of Akkad is?
I am.
Yeah, this guy, because I was like, so I'm curious, are you a Sargon fan? He goes, oh, he's too liberal for me.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Yeah. I'm like, whoa.
Well, this guy is a pure white supremacist. Well, yeah, he's not alt-right. He is a white supremacist.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Yeah. Oh, and you'll love this one, Gail. Because I chose not to have children, just not my thing, and but I've deprived myself of that because, even though I said, look, I don't like toddlers, like really don't like toddlers, just you. And but if it was your child, you would feel different. And I'm like, no, I no. Not having it, but that's my womanly duty. All women have a motherly instinct, all of us somehow. I'm like, I'm sure towards cats. I'm very cats. We up until recently we had 5 of them, and it was very good with that. But anyway, so that was my fun for this past week. And the funny part was at the end of it all, like, and it got heated a couple of times, and I mean, like, when we were on Facebook, he was firing insults that I had to look up. Like, and like, one of them was very derogatory towards people with Asperger's. My favorite one was he called me a retarded gash.
Oh, I haven't heard that one in a while.
I was like, right, moving along. And oh, hi, Trav. Trav's watching. They said if Sargon is too liberal, you're definitely not someone to take seriously. Yeah, that's for damn sure. But when we talked, he actually, well, by the end of the Facebook conversation, he'd actually kind of gotten rather nice towards me. And that's when he was like, oh, we should talk. I'm like, huh? And at the end of the actual discussion, we were yelling at each other at one point. And then he's like, oh, well, that was kind of fun. We should do it again sometime. I'm like, you're weird. Like, asshole, but you're a weirdo asshole.
Well, and that's what people don't get. Like, you guys, got heated, and I mean, I wouldn't say it was a purely positive note that the debate ended on it, but yet I'm debating people that are saying that I'm criticizing them and I'm ridiculing them. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just using your own words. Yeah, people are weird.
Yeah. So, but anyway, this is about Gayle.
Yes.
Not my adventures in bizarro debating. Fun a time. So Gayle, let's start because I always like to sort of get to know our guests a little bit. So my first question usually is, were you religious, and if so, what flavor?
Sure. I like telling that story, and it gives us all the framework to know where we're all coming from. So it's not spectacular. It's a pretty normal story. My particular flavor of religion was Southern Baptist, and I completely bought into it. I was taken to church every time the doors were open. I was a religious teenager. I went to college. I met my future husband at a Baptist conference center. We became that family. We had children. We had them at the church every time the doors were open. And it was, as I said, it was genuine. I believed. I taught my children to believe. And about the time I had 4 children really close together, speaking of motherhood, I threw doubles the last time. So I had all 4 of my kids in 3 years.
I have a cousin that had the same thing happen.
It was a couple of kind of crazy years, but as soon as they got older, I was real glad of that. And so they all became teenagers close to the same time. They all entered into the youth group. And when they did, and they got to be teenagers, they came to me with questions that I was expecting, because church teenagers have these questions. And it was about the morality of the Bible. It was about the academic veracity of the Bible. They had also become more exposed as they started high school, more exposed to people of different beliefs. And so I agreed with them that we would research this together. I validated their questions. Let's find some answers. And we started asking our questions inside the bubble, inside the religion bubble. So we started with our pastors, our youth ministers, our Sunday school teachers, and we got the expected party line. God's ways are higher than our ways. There's things we're not going to understand, etc., which were not very satisfying. And so we began to ask questions outside the bubble. We began to study anthropology and history and psychology. And as we made progress with that, they became much less confident in their beliefs. At one of these sessions, one of my sons said to me, is sort of a precursor of street epistemology. He said to me, "Mom, you've always taught us to be relentless in our pursuit for information," which I had. We were library fiends. This was early beginnings of internet. So we would make trips to the library to find out things we had questions about. And he said, if faith can lead a person to be a Muslim, and faith can lead a person to be a Mormon, and faith can lead a person to be a Christian, is faith the best way to figure out what's true? Because that's kind of the religious standard. And so they had an easier time dissociating from religion than I did, because they weren't as vested. They were teenagers, and one by one, each one according to her or his own personality, and each one according to their own pace, they began to leave religion. And as they went through high school and they began to graduate from high school and go to college, I was left by myself in a Southern religious community, and my entire social network was religious. My marriage was religious. I stayed in, when they began to leave, I stayed in probably for about a year longer than I should have. I continued to teach Sunday school, continued to attend, tried to make it work, and I finally came to terms with myself, and made that decision. And my marriage didn't survive. I kind of started over, this whole second life. I started over, and it was that Ingersoll quote about, when you first feel that freedom, and your cell bars disappear and your manacles fall off, and so it was traumatic. My separation from religion was traumatic because it affected my personal life in so many ways. But because my deconversion, so to speak, was so seismic, everything changed for me. The things that I valued, the things that I wanted to do with my life, the appreciation I had for this life, how I managed my relationships, everything changed for me. It was it was profound. It was profound. And so I kind of as therapy, I followed a dream that I had always had, which was I returned to law school after I got divorced and I was 50 years old. I returned to law school and became a lawyer. And now I have this whole other life, and now it's wonderful. At the time, I didn't know how I was going to survive it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my Reader's Digest condensed version of my story, and that's my religion story.
Awesome. And yeah, a lot of people go through that total upheaval because when you come to that realization that it's not true, then you find out how ingrained it is in everything you do. And down there, as I've noticed from my multiple visits, it's very ingrained.
Very ingrained. And you find that I'm 10 or 12 years out from my deconversion, so to speak, and I still have little issues that will bubble up. And you think, now I'll have some moment of judgment or some kind of weird response to something. And I'm like, now I'm rational. What's happening here? Why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this? And every now and then you'll uncover this artifact, this relic from religion. And it's still a process for me, 12 years later.
And this is a discussion that Beth and I have all the time, because Beth took about a 10-year journey to find her way out. I did it overnight.
Gosh, everybody's jealous of you.
Yes. No, and I was 17 at the time. I just
goodness sakes.
And I was a devout Christian at the time, but I've always been a student of history my whole, as long as I can remember, having access to history books. I was soaking it in. And kind of one day went, damn, they're all fake. And it was like, bing. And I think, within 2 weeks, I was like, I'm out of here.
That's remarkable. That's remarkable, Deborah. It's so arduous for some of us.
And I was really lucky because it also happened right as I was finishing high school. So I was already leaving home. I was leaving all my friends. I was leaving everything. And so it was like, oh, well, I could just leave the God with all that crap too and off to new horizons. And when you're in university, now in Canada, nobody really cares what you are anyway. And even less so when you're in university. It would occasionally, oh, you're Catholic. Oh, I'm an atheist. Oh, okay. And where are we going drinking tonight?
The universal question.
Yeah. See, our drinking age is 19, so yeah, there was a lot of drinking when I was in university. But yeah, it's such a major life change for so many people. And I bet that's what got you into your other project, isn't it?
It is. And so I wish that there had been some kind of resource when I was going through my transition, my questioning period, such as it is, and now there is. And so I am now the executive director of Recovering from Religion. I don't mean to imply I began that, because it was begun by Dr. Darrell Ray in 2009, who had the vision to see that there was a need for a resource for people to turn to when they were going through their time, especially people in more isolated religious areas. Places where one could ask a question without judgment, a place where one could express the doubts and the fears and all of those things. So his idea has now transformed. As of now, we have a hotline, a telephone hotline, a literal hotline, 184, I doubt it, that we have trained agents. These are peers. This is peer support. We have trained agents standing by the phone, and we also have an internet chat. So whichever your flavor of choice is, whether you'd like to talk or do an internet chat, we have trained agents standing by. As I said, I'm always careful to say what the helpline is not, in addition to what it is. It is definitely peer support, and it is not a deconversion line. This is not someplace where you call in and we start egging you on and urging you to discard these beliefs, because that's what religion does, is try to convince you of something to believe. We try to provide
open about is that you encourage people who still believe that they're welcome to call.
Which is why we are very protective of our reputation for not being a deconversion line. And we market ourselves to the religious community. That's where folks who are struggling are. And so we are careful about protecting that reputation because we want people to feel free to call. If the word gets out, oh, if you call those people, all they're going to do is talk you out of your beliefs. Number one, that's not how it works. Everyone is on their own pace and everyone has to come to the conclusion of what they believe on their own time. We provide resources, we provide a place to ask questions, but we don't try to urge the person, just, drop that one. You've got one more step, any of that. In fact, if there were a religious person who chatted in or called in and whatever their doubt or whatever their issue was, if they got a resource to get that resolved, they may continue to go on and be a believer. That's okay with us. I mean, we're not here to try to talk you out of your beliefs. Folks may want to find maybe someone from a fundamental version of Christianity is looking for a more moderate version. That's okay too. Here's a place where you can get your questions answered. We have a vast array of resources. We have blogs and podcasts and websites and books that we would recommend. Plus the contact with an agent who has an understanding and who has compassion and who's doing this because they feel compelled to try to help folks who are struggling with this kind of thing. So that's what the helpline is.
Well, I think you make a good point by saying we are not trying to talk you out of your beliefs. And I know with a lot of theists that I have dealt with, they think that, in my case, my conversion was overnight. And it's like, no, it was like a 10-year journey, and mine was pre-internet and pre-Richard Dawkins.
Mm-hmm.
So none of that's going to work. And I wish Dawkins would have wrote his book back in the day, because I probably would have converted overnight. I'm not saying that it's a great book or anything like that, but he was able to put into words that I could understand what I was going through. And I think, and that's a misconception people have, is that we not just try to talk, that we talk people out of it. And it's like, no, it doesn't quite work that way. Now, some people it does, but for, I think a lot of us, it's a process, whether it's a 1 week process of, what, like with Deb, or in my case, it took 10 years. But I grew up in the church. My parents were as close to preachers as they can be. My dad was the president of the church. I was a PK without being a PK. I mean, it was literally ingrained, not as extreme as some other people I know, Vicki Garrison being the perfect example. But I grew up in that. I went to college to study the Bible and theology to become a minister. Even though I knew my specific denomination doesn't support women ministers. So it's, yeah.
She had William Lane Craig as a teacher.
Oh, wow.
It jumped.
Okay, well.
Close enough.
Yeah. Jump part really quite fitting.
I'll tell you another layer of what we provide after a chat or a phone call. I told you that our agents are trained not to engage in any kind of deconversion, but they're also trained. We don't do any self-disclosure. We have a screen name that we can use, and we don't do self-disclosure because of a couple of reasons. Number one, primarily the main reason is this conversation is about the client, not about us. And no matter how successful our personal stories are, we don't want to color the client's experience by telling them about, how great we did or how poorly we did or any of that. This is all about the client. So, pursuant to a phone call or a chat, the client is then offered the invitation to join our online community. And in the online community, the client is also offered the option to self-select the communities with which he or she or they want to be involved in: LGBT, Mormon, Christian, seeking answers, those kinds of things. They self-select into that community, and inside that community, that's where they begin to build relationships with other clients, other folks who are somewhere on this same journey or this same spectrum. They may be much farther apart in the geography of their journey, but their they've self-selected the same community, so the topics are similar. They can talk about that, and that has been we added that as we saw the need for that, and that has really taken off. And so we invite folks. The only stipulation is that has to be pursuant to a chat or a phone call, because we vet and make sure that we don't get a bunch of trolls in the community, because wouldn't that be a treasure to someone who wanted to corrupt that? So we're careful about that.
You get trolled all day for being a Christian. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. So the online community is another additional feature that we have to be able to provide folks. Our mission statement is that we provide hope, healing, support, and community to folks who are struggling with issues of doubt and non-belief. And what better way to do that than have the opportunity to speak with an agent who has compassion and understanding and resources, and then to join our online community and be able to foster those. And then the third component, and then I'll stop talking about it, we have local support groups. So in a town, all we ask is we have once again a peer support layperson leader who goes through our training. It's just training about group dynamics and how to, what a therapy session, what a peer support therapy session looks like. And then they establish a time and a meeting place. And we have these in cities all over the US where folks come together and have a full-on, support group peer therapy session.
Awesome.
One question, just to clarify, even though I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I don't want to make an ass of you or me. This is not just for clergy, then.
Oh, no. This is for anybody. That's a common mistake, that the Clergy Project is a standalone project, and we partner with them to be able to provide support, so that when we get a clergy person in there, we direct them to that. So we have a close relationship with the Clergy Project. But recovering from religion is for anyone of any religion, anyone anywhere on the spectrum of that religion, anyone. If you've got one question or 1,000, it's an absolute resource for anyone.
Well, the only reason I wanted to make that stipulation was that I know from my own experience that as clergy, I have many friends who were clergy. Some are atheists, some are other religions, which I personally find bizarre, but they didn't have the resources, and their journey, part of the problem they face when they leave the pulpit is they are not qualified. And this is where the Clergy Project is so important compared to, and I'm not slighting your organization one bit, whereas for a layperson the experience is different. And I think that having both, and the fact that you work together, I think is really important, because I was kind of stuck in the middle, because I was going to school to be a clergy, but I was still technically a lay person. So I'm like, I don't know where I fit. And, I think that's part of the fact it was pre-internet. I mean, trying to get information back in 70s and 80s, it was really difficult.
Well, and when you're in an atmosphere where questioning anything is considered, a bad juju, basically, like, oh no, we don't ask questions. Mm-hmm. So it makes it doubly hard. So and I like the forum idea, because let's say you're somebody who's, I have some issues with my denomination, and I don't feel comfortable because everybody around me seems so sure of everything. They can go to another Christian forum and say, hey, I'm from X denomination and I have this problem. Does anybody, have a experience with that? And they can get together, and like you said, yeah, they may end up being religious forever, but they may get together and be like, wow, that doesn't make sense. And
well, I think as far as the online forum, for my biggest impetus was at the time, because it's all that existed, were the news groups and the bulletin boards. Internet, as we know it now, did not exist. So I did not, all I had was news groups, which are now, they're a joke. But being able to realize that you are not the only one going through this, I think is an important thing, because, for me, it was a solitary journey. I didn't know any other atheists. At least I don't think I did. So I didn't have anybody to turn to other than the news groups. And so being able to talk to other questioning folk, I think, is, especially how you have it broken down into denominations, etc., is, I think that's, like, for lack of a better word, so cool.
It's and I'll tell you something from the inside. It's as gratifying as it probably appears to be able to, because I serve as an agent myself, to be able to engage in those phone calls or those chats. To all of our communities, all of our online communities have a moderator, and to be able to help provide a resource when a very intense conversation is going on, it is pay it forward to the nth degree, especially those of us who have struggled with our whole process and coming out and adjusting and reworking our lives, and to be able to it's a humbling honor to be able to be part of that when a person is struggling through that, and to be able to watch that happen and to be able to help when that's happening. It's so anyone who's listening, if anyone is interested in being a volunteer, it's simple. It's recoveringfromreligion.org is the website. That's where everything is. That's where the chat can be found on every page. The telephone number is there, and the volunteer tab is, the volunteer or the donate tab are completely available. That's the resource. But it's a wonderful experience, and it's from the comfort of your home. And we don't require a shift. Obviously, these are all volunteers. We don't have to even commit to which time of the week or which time of the day you're going to be available. We all work together. There's so many of us that we all work together. We have a way to be in the community, and when a call or a chat comes in, there's a system whereby you designate, I can take this call, I can take this chat for the next 10 minutes, whatever it is. So it's a wonderful way to pay it forward if anyone is interested in doing that.
Awesome. Would you say you get any people calling that are religious?
Everyone.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Some folks have, let's say they have done the heavy emotional lifting and they've discarded the belief, but they're not out. That's a whole new universe. Those are two different problems. The first arduous piece of the journey is getting all the pieces pulled together in your mind of, okay, there's not enough evidence. I no longer have confidence. This is my conclusion. Great. Now you're in a home, or you're in a community, or you're in an environment where everyone else believes, and this is going to shake everybody's world and rock them out of your lives. And so you get people, different places and different times. In addition to that, as you can imagine, you have people who not only with their discovery of what their belief system is, they make discoveries about themselves, whether it's about their sexuality or it's about their politics or whatever it is that have been tied to the religion. Those pieces are attached too, as Beth was saying earlier. Sometimes those are attached, and when the religion piece goes away, so many of these moving parts are affected. So you never know when you have a call or a chat where it's going to go. But we're anywhere on the spectrum, and anything that relates to doubting or struggling with issues of doubt and non-belief, we're able to help with.
Well, what I find interesting, and I don't know how you, actually, I'd like if you can disclose this, is that one of the things I've noticed after being an atheist for almost 20 years now is that what I believe, i.e., as an example, that being gay is okay, has never changed. I spent a good portion of my college career, and I never graduated, so just we're clear on that. The time before I even was questioning and deconverting and all that, I had already solidified that being gay is okay, even by biblical standards. And I get this criticism, in fact, I'm getting it today. When I discuss, I approach it from that angle, what the Bible says. I don't give a crap what I believe. It's what you believe. But my core values have never changed, ever, except politically. But, You know, and it's funny. It's like, oh, you're a lesbian because you're an atheist. It's like, no, actually, I was lesbian for 28 years before I became an atheist, and I already had decided. So people think they have to change everything about their lives, and they don't really. Is that something you face a lot?
We do get that. We do get that. And you find, there are people who belong to a fundamental version of whatever, write your own religion, whatever religion it is. And yet they have progressive ideas about things like that, about sexuality and those kinds of things. And so the books, the holy books, can be made to, as we all know, you can pick and choose any number of passages to defend whatever it is your belief system is. And so sometimes we get people who that leads them to their doubt, Beth. In other words, they know that it's okay to be gay. There's something about them, like you, who embrace that, from even with the indoctrination of religion, even with the passages in the Bible as they are. They just simply know that. And there are times when that leads to the doubt later, because if this is true, if I embrace this, then maybe this is the thing that I need to question. And then there are folks who come into us who are solidly convinced, for example, the other end of the spectrum, homosexuality is wrong because my religion says that, and they're doubting their religion for some other reason. Maybe they've been exposed to science and they're beginning to dissect what they believe there, and then the belief about some other thing like homosexuality
I have
comes.
had a lot of people who were ingrained with the creationism, for lack of better, and when they went to college or university, however you want to phrase it, they started learning real science, and they're like, well, this doesn't match up with what I was taught when I was growing up. And that was what led to their atheism. And for me, I mean, for me personally, it had nothing to do with my homosexuality. I already had that question settled when I was like 20. I mean, and I even pointed this out. I said, you're taking, for example, the Levitical passages and saying they condemn homosexuality, ignoring the beginning of the chapter of 18 that says this is for the Israelites in the land of Canaan, and you're not supposed to do this. I'm not Israeli. Well, yeah, and it's like, oh, you're taking that out of context, and I'm like, how am I taking a declarative statement out of context? But it's just, so for me, like, I'm not an atheist because I'm gay. I'm an atheist because of whatever reason. The science didn't add up, this or the morality didn't add up, or it just, choose your reasons. And it's like, and I think when people face that conundrum that it appears 1 plus 1 is equaling 3, they're like, this isn't right, and it's hard to go through. And I think that's why your organization is so important, because I from what little I know, it's offering that, I don't know if support's the right word I'm looking for, but the support to explore the issues further.
Well, and we know that religion is not stupid. And I know I'm anthropomorphizing religion, but religion is not stupid. They're prepared for the questions. They're prepared for the doubts. And they're so uniquely armored for that, so that when you do have those doubts, there's a party line answer. And then don't ever forget that when you doubt, it's a weakness on your part. And so it builds itself. It's built in. That's baked into the formula for keeping you in there. And so to have a place where you can ask the questions without feeling the guilt of simply asking the questions in the first place, without feeling like you're betraying your church or your church family simply by having the doubts. That's how we want to be perceived. That's how we want to present ourselves to folks. This is not a place, we don't have and we don't have all the answers, and we're not going to try to tell you what to be and how to live. We're going to try to provide you resources that will help you answer your questions and will help you at your own pace come to whatever conclusion you come to. It's a little bit of tapping into sometimes latent critical thinking skills. Sometimes we, we find that because that's part of the indoctrination process is diverting those critical thinking skills. That passage in the Bible, lean not into your own understanding. Well, we're maybe doing a little bit more back to that. Let's think this through. And so we try to provide the resources to help folks do that.
Well, I think it's interesting how, and I don't know if you can really address this issue because I don't want to, but it takes me back to Daryl Ray's book, The God Virus. It's been quite a few years since I've read it, so I'm probably a little rusty on it, but it's just like, there's another book that I wish
had
was
been around
written 25 years ago, because I probably would have changed like that, because it just, yeah.
It won't surprise you to know that you're not the first person we hear that from. A lot of folks, sometimes folks find Recovering from Religion through Daryl because they've read the book and now this is interesting, and then they Google it or whatever and they find the whole Recovering from Religion. But oftentimes people talk about the book because Daryl laid out such a convincing case for what happens and why we have the responses and the reactions we do as children and as adults to religion, and how insidious religion is for making us lean back into it, to subvert any kind of asking questions or doubting and that kind of thing. Yeah, that book is that book has been pivotal for a lot of folks. It's a lot of folks.
I think it's funny though too, and I've commented to Deb about this. Is when we went to NanoCon, I brought my personal copy of The God Virus and had Daryl autograph it. Just cause. But and I just find the interconnections, like, obviously, Daryl started the organization, and I got interested in you personally because of your political run in Tennessee. I found, and I'm kind of a political junkie. So the interconnectedness that just through just like NanoCon, and it was actually, I actually had a really, good talk with Daryl, not specifically about Daryl, but it was really fun to realize, to see where he was going. And it was just like, if I had to pick two books that were probably instrumental in solidifying my thought, because I was already an atheist by then, it would have to be Dawkins and it would have to be Daryl's book. And I think, it's just, it's kind of weird how that connects.
That's wonderful.
He's one smart cookie.
He's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. And the best sense of humor, that guy. So Beth brought up a good point, is you did run for Senate this spring, and by all accounts that was quite an experience.
That was quite an experience. As you know, Recovering from Religion is a nonprofit, and Recovering from Religion as a nonprofit stays apolitical. As the executive director, I have the freedom to be able to do that. So now we're kind of shifting gears, and what I'm representing is my story about my experience being a candidate in the state of Tennessee. I had run for the state Senate in 2016 for a state Senate seat. And that was in the regular cycle. That was we call that the Trump cycle. That was in 2016. And I did about as well as every other Democrat in the state of Tennessee, which is not saying much. We not only have a Republican majority, we have a Republican supermajority in our legislature. So it is a highly religious, highly conservative, highly Republican area. And so we knew that. The seat became available in a special election again in 2018. State Senate seats, state Senate terms in Tennessee are 4 years for state Senate. And so this was a year and a half into the cycle. The fellow who had the seat took a Trump appointment. The seat became available. And of course, I'm committed to running again. The first time I ran in 2016, we got very little traction. We had all the support, of course, of all of the Democrats, but we didn't do a lot of persuasion. We are very fractured in Tennessee. It seems like you're either one or the other, as it is nationally. It doesn't seem like there's much of a middle any longer. But so when I ran for the seat this time, it's what's known as an open seat because there wasn't an incumbent. We were both new coming in, and this fellow I was running against, he was a wealthy pharmacist, and he had no political experience either. So we were a little bit more on a level playing field, and it was quite the experience. We somehow captured the attention of the entire Tennessee Republican Party. This was a state race. It's 4.5 counties. It wasn't a big deal. We knew what the math was going into it. Republicans outnumbered Democrats by about 4-1 in this area. We knew that. I have been, as you know, I've been an open atheist for about 10 years, and I've been the executive director of RFR for 2 years, and that's also public. And so we ran this race with that information being very public, but for some reason it captured the imagination of the Tennessee Republican Party, and they just lost their minds over it. And we knew it was a weapon that they were going to use, but we had no idea the lengths to which they would go. So,
well, I was telling you, I was Googling for a nice photo of you before the show.
Got all of the flyers that the Tennessee Republican Party sent on my behalf.
I'm gonna share it. And by the way, you've become nothing but a face.
Yeah, I thought I was.
I'm floating in the dark. It's getting dark here in Tennessee.
Though.
Yes, I'm just a floating head now. There it is.
I don't know why it's flipping like that. Stop it there.
Yes.
So, yeah, and for those of you who are listening, because we also simultaneously broadcast as
that's
podcast.
Right.
So I will just read here. It's a lovely picture. It's your portrait you use on the RFR site, if I'm correct, I believe. And they've added to it a little quote of yours, and it says, "In her own words, Gayle Jordan," and then it says, "God is such a bad God," and they've bolded that. "The sacrifice of Jesus is such a bad concept," also in bold. "And even if it were true, I wouldn't want to follow it." And then they left the best part for the last, where it says, "Doing my part to destroy the fabric of American society." Hyperbole Batman.
A little bit. Those the first quote was from a podcast that I was a guest on, and we were talking about the conversation had turned. We were talking about atheism and secularism, and we were talking about decline in American society and different things. And I was saying, I think religion has contributed to that because religion allows us to overthrow our own responsibility for our own actions, because I can be as bad as I want to be, and Jesus died for me. And so I don't have to be accountable for my bad acts. As an atheist, and you all both know this, when we put our heads on our pillow at nighttime, we have to come to terms with how we've behaved and how we've acted and what we've said. And my point was we have subverted our natural responsibility for our own actions. We have subverted our own compassion and empathy and supplanted it with this religious, artificial, oh, you're always going to have poor people and it's all God's will and you can pray about something, instead of it being on us. Anyway, I kind of chased a rabbit there, but that quote was it was a great conversation we were having about personal responsibility. And I was saying, I think that the idea that Jesus takes our sins and absorbs our sins, and we are then left, washed in the blood, whiter than snow. I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem. And I don't think it's healthy for people to do that. So that's what that dramatic quote was all about.
Well, what I find funny, and it's one of my biggest tropes against Christianity specifically, but basically all religion, is that personal responsibility is eliminated.
Yeah.
And it's like nothing like missing the whole context of your conversation. It's like, are you serious? I mean, and what was so bizarre about your run was that the only issue to them, being your adversary, I can't remember his name, but was the fact that you were an atheist. That's it. That was their whole. That was
the whole thing. That was the whole thing. We ran on pretty conventional issues that affect us here in Tennessee: education, healthcare, infrastructure, easy stuff, And we never heard a word from them about that. It was all about, she has no values and she has no morals and she doesn't know how to live a moral life. And there's, we can't elect her because of this. I mean, it was as blatant an attack on religious freedom as I've ever seen.
I don't see a whole lot of morality coming out of the White House. I mean, that's just me.
But... Yeah, and that's what makes it even more oxymoronic, is Deb just noted. It's just like, instead of focusing on the actual issues that your state faces, and granted, when I went down for NanoCon, that's the first time I've been to Tennessee in quite a few years. And it was... I think one of the biggest things that struck me as an issue, and it might not be in this particular case, but they had outbuildings for classrooms.
Portables. We have them in just about every public school in the state.
I mean, it's like the only time, like here, I live in Pennsylvania. I'm originally from New York State. They had some outbuildings. Why? Because they were doing construction.
Nope. Ours are part and parcel.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, okay. I mean, now from my understanding, just to clarify, I was talking to someone that was associated with the school that we were having our the conference in, is that the outbuildings were necessary because the school is growing.
Well, that's why they're always necessary. And we haven't, and as usual, we haven't kept up with education. Our teachers haven't gotten a raise. But yes, it's routine in Tennessee to have that.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I'm pretty sure you're aware of what's going on in Oklahoma. And I've seen some videos taking away the whole issue of wages. They're using science books from 1982.
Ridiculous. I mean,
just leave it at that.
It boggles my mind, some of the footage I've seen. My mother was a teacher for 32 years. And when we were in grade school, we went to the same school. So, I saw lots of her classroom because I had to stay there until school started every day. And I mean, she was the kind of teacher that would, do extra projects, and like she created a listening station so that the kids who finish their work first have something to do while the other kids finish up, and things like that. But I mean, she did it all with stuff that we'd grown out of, or she'd go to the
sure
or things like that. Didn't have to go out and buy damn textbooks or paper or like that's just beyond ridiculous.
We are afflicted terribly here in Tennessee with the opioid crisis, and I ran on a pro-cannabis platform because we have the research has shown that that helps to alleviate the initial problem, the initial nexus where people get on to some kind of those dangerous addictive drugs, and then over time for chronic pain relief, it's also it's very useful. And you would have thought I would have said we're going to all put our kidneys on the open market. I mean, it was so backwards and so non-scientific. And when we would talk about it, and we're trying to talk about the different applications of cannabis oils and different things, and they simply the language they use is, we're not going to sit around here in Tennessee smoking pot. And it's like, what a loss of not even being able to, if you want to be opposed to cannabis and you want to talk about the facts and talk about the drawbacks and whatever, but to even use that language and to use that much disrespect for the issue itself, much less the voters, much less your opponent, much less the citizens of Tennessee that will be affected by this. And it was like that just about across the board.
That's why they labeled you. The other one was a self-described hippie, liberal, atheist activist.
I'm sure I've said those words.
But I just found it so bizarre that the real issues got so buried behind the fact, oh, she's an atheist.
Yes.
You know, it's like
a showstopper. But I'll tell you, in the grand scheme of things, when we debriefed and the election was over and we got to see what happened, and of course they beat us by a landslide, but we got the support of 5,000 voters. And here in Tennessee, those 5,000 Democratic voters, by far a vast majority of them were religious people. And they had to come to terms with, most of them have an understanding of religious freedom and they have an appreciation for it because they're Democrats to begin with. But nonetheless, these religious people had to come to terms with the word atheist and with what that meant and with what religious liberty meant and what that meant about supporting me with their volunteer time, with their vote, and with their donations. And that is progress. That's how we get there. And now 5,000 people in the state of Tennessee have voted for an open atheist. We call that kind of flattening the grass for the people who come behind us. And so the next time a person runs as an atheist in Tennessee, the Republicans are still going to lose their minds and do whatever they're going to do. But it's not the first time they will have heard it. It's that, we hear about that. It's the Overton window. It's the conversation has shifted a little bit because you're not going to have the same dramatic impact when you call someone an atheist now because they've already heard it. Okay, yeah, it's an atheist. It's the second one I've heard about, or the third one I've heard about, or the fourth one I've heard about. That's how you make progress. And so it was an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to run, and I would not have exchanged my experience for anything.
Well, one of the things I told you, oops, sorry, that's okay. Lagging, but one of the I think one of the things when I met you in person when we were down in Tennessee was that not just you, I know there were other atheist candidates for special elections and stuff. You have opened the door for those of us that don't believe in the same manner that, the majority do. And I think you've made inroads for an open atheist to further on what you've started.
I hope that that's what others see. I hope that's the message that other people have experienced because, they are going to come at you with ugly names and ugly pictures of your faces and ugly things that they say about you. But we're standing on the shoulders of the giants who have come before us of any movement, of any time we've had to stand up and say, nope, we're going to do this a different way. This is not the way it should be. And so I hope that more people feel that way. It was all worth it anyway, but it will certainly be the cherry on top if other folks can see and say, you know what, I can do that. I can do that too. I can run for office, particularly now in the crazy political environment we have. Not to get too far.
I think from what I've read, and I'll say skim, is that there are quite a few women open.
You just hit your mute.
Scientists, atheists, women, now either contemplating or actually running. And I'm sorry that you faced that vitriol that you did, but I appreciate, even though I live in Pennsylvania, the fact that you put yourself out there, and not just specifically to you, but to, all the people that are really going out on a limb. I mean, Deem was the first LGBTQ, openly transgendered that won a seat. I mean, yes, to me, that is, phenomenal. I mean, we're making inroads. It's sad we have to go that route, but when you have Texas, for example, in 2012, in their Republican platform stating critical thinking is bad and not to be taught in schools, not a problem.
I feel bad for Aaron having to live out there and deal
with
it.
It's a good example of that, because then you have somebody like Arn who made the attempt.
Yep, he ran.
He did.
Well,
and you got to laugh because he'd be the first person to say, and I look like Satan incarnate, and I still
And I love that fact because it's like, feed right into that. But you are so wrong, because I haven't met Arn in person. I have talked to him online. And it's just like, if I had half the freaking brains he did, I'd be considered a genius. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it just, and that's this thing. I mean, it's like, instead of focusing on what you are saying in context, the quote that they totally slaughtered, like missing the whole context of your conversation, we'd be so much better off from a political standpoint and a social standpoint, because it would be based. I mean, come on, we got a fucking HUD head that believes that the pyramids were built by Joseph,
and
he's a fucking brain surgeon.
When he made some dumbass comment about trans people not too long ago, and my status was, Ben Carson can go fuck himself with a grain storage unit. I know this is sort of beating a dead horse, but I had to share this one because I just thought this is so ridiculous.
Okay. There we
go.
go.
Yes, and that's Gayle, where they've picked the least flattering picture they could, and then topped her off with a tinfoil hat.
A tinfoil pussy hat.
Pussy hat.
Oh, is it? Okay.
See that?
Yeah.
See it?
Yeah, I see it now.
See it now. Yeah, the tinfoil pussy hat. And so she has some kooky liberal ideas.
Yeah, like education and healthcare.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it is actually, for those, well, if you look at the wedge document and you get into all that bullshit, education is not addressed in the sense that they're against it. If you look at the platforms, Texas being one of them, and that's why I use them as an example, but Kansas, Brownback has destroyed. I used to live in Kansas.
Wow.
And I got out, thankfully, just as Brownback was consolidating his power. So it was sometime in his first year. And I think the flying for spaghetti monster, I got out of there. They literally are against education. Generally, it's $3,000 per student per year is what the federal guidelines are for spending on a student. They are barely spending $600 per student.
Wow.
I mean, so don't tell me you're not against education when you are so underfunding it. And what's really scary and what's not focused on by in general, the Republicans, there are some Democrats that lean to that side. So,
Sure.
It's generally Republicans or Tea Partiers, is that they don't see an issue with it.
Well,
they don't even address it.
And you have to understand why, the more educated a populace is, yes, it's so that is not incidental to what they're trying to do. That's not sort of coincidental. That's baked in. That's part of the plan.
Yeah. And it's not just some whim. Like you said, it's a plan, and it's something that, as Deb well knows, I've been harping on for Palin days. The whole dominionist and theocratic movement. That's most of my 30 real books that I have, not counting my Kindle. I'll deal with dominionism in some way, shape, or form, because it's a real thing. It's just like, and I think people are finally starting to realize, they're seeing the implications of what not just a politician's personal religious beliefs are, but the collective. It's just really bizarre.
I point out that stuff out here, and people are like, "The what?"
It's no, but
well, we're the Dominion of Canada, right? So they're like, "We're the Dominion." It's like, no. We don't want that Dominion. Trust me. We got rid of Ted Cruz. You can keep him.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and that was a package with Bieber and Celine Dion too, in case you didn't know.
Okay.
Well, I happen to like Celine Dion, so I can live with that. Bieber, on the other hand, I'm neutral.
Right.
Both. I don't want them. Yeah.
I just, for some reason, just happen to like Celine Dion. I don't know why, because it's really not my style of music. I'm more of into the progressive, but I think that was during my depressive days.
I think they were kind of pretentious, actually.
Well, it was such a pleasure to talk to you guys. I have to hop off. I have a thing I have to do at 8:00 Central. So I'm so grateful that I got to visit with you all. You've given me a new podcast to listen to too.
This is show 151 with a couple of specials.
I've got a lot of catching up to do there.
Okay, I'm honored personally that you came on. I'm honored that I was able to meet you in person when I was down in Tennessee.
What a nice thing to say.
Well, I think you give a push, and I hate using this word, so don't beat me up. The movement that, I think is what we need to focus on. And it's given me personally the impetus to get back to my roots. And I mean, I had a stroke 3 years ago, so I just now am starting to feel normal again. So it's a nice impetus, and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's a nice thing to say. It's the work that Recovering from Religion does is so critical. It's so critical, and it is, and it's such a way. I know I've said this earlier in the podcast, but it's such a way to be able to be engaged and to pay forward and to have such a sensitivity to what the struggle is for some folks. So if anyone within the range of our voices are hearing and you're interested in it, really and truly, there's the volunteer process is very straightforward. You hit the volunteer tab, recoveringfromreligion.org, and hit the volunteer tab, and it's an easy process to do. So we would love to have you as part of the RFR family.
Oh, the more the merrier, I'm sure.
Correct. Yes, we'd love that. We'd love that.
Other than the site, is there anything else you wanted to mention before you head off?
Well, always Recovering from Religion is a volunteer organization. We've all had our Daryl adoration moments here tonight, and he is as awesome as you all think he is. I can say that. What an opportunity to have him be the president of the board of directors, and I can work with him as the executive director. He's as wonderful as you think he is, and we are volunteer from him to me to the newest trained volunteer. We do this because this is what we feel compelled to do. It's a joy and a privilege to be able to help folks in their journey. As I said, it's a humbling experience. And so if you feel led to, or you're so inclined, or you share our vision for what we do, donating is also easy. recoveringfromreligion.org and the donate button. And even a couple dollars a month, we run on a really lean budget, and even a couple dollars a month makes a difference. So if you want to do both and be a superstar and want to both volunteer and donate, we'd love that too.
Somebody who doesn't have the bandwidth to volunteer and might be like, oh damn, I can't do that. Well, donating's always
a couple of bucks thrown it into the pot makes a big difference. And so once again, guys, thank you so much for having me on.
And I do have that linked in the show description. So
wonderful. Thank you for that.
Stay there.
All right. So let me know next time y'all are in Tennessee.
I know. But she had little duckies.
Little duckies. Now they're big ducklings.
They're like quacking around.
Yes, they're quacking now instead of peeping, and the chickies are big. And yes.
Oh, yay. I didn't get to meet your goat, though. I need to meet your goat.
Couple of goats. And so you'll have to make a trip down here so you can do that anytime.
We're headed to Nevada this summer. But
okay.
Gonna do Vegas for the first time ever.
Oh, that's going to be a good time. That's going to be wonderful.
We're going to be corrupted.
There you go. Prepare to be corrupted. Or you're going to corrupt Vegas, one or the other.
That's more likely.
All right, guys. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I know I speak about not putting people on pedestals, but yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. For me, like, I knew about Gayle prior to going to Tennessee, and I was really impressed with her. And there's another individual that I'm trying to learn about out in California, who's falling into that same category, but I'm still learning. So, but to actually be able to, yeah, I'm going to get fangirlish here, but to actually be able to meet her in person, to hear, you know, her talk about the issues, and because it was Kelly's wedding, I didn't want to go that route, and so I just kept it very simple, thank you, yada yada yada, all that stuff. But I just think she's such a good voice, not just for the freedom from religion. I always get them confused.
Recovery
from religion. Yeah, see, I get them confused. And for her politics, for lack of a better word, I just think she's a really good example. And as I said, it's been part of the impetus to get back to what I know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, I still have the politics because there's issues that are personal to me that affect me directly, and they affect me directly because people use religion, i.e., the whole he that doesn't work shall not eat, to take away my SNAP. So it's good. I mean, and that's, and it was sad watching her campaign in the sense that, as she said, education, none of that stuff was even broached. It was all, oh, she's an atheist.
It speaks to the people who would vote that way if the only issue a candidate comes up with is, oh, look, our opponent's shitty.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it boils down to. And they could be the worst candidate ever, but if they convince these people that the other person's worse, that's how they vote. Like, that's pathetic.
Kind of like what happened in the presidential election.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, and I've contemplated, but I don't think my health would allow it, and I probably, and I don't say this in jest, would get killed if I try to run as an open, just even for the borough board. I may be wrong, and I'm probably being a bit hyperbolic, but I've stated before, I do not feel safe outside my home. There are certain places within town I feel safe, but in general, no. So for me, it would be, suicide, literally, to run. And that's sad. And also in Pennsylvania, if you're an atheist, it's illegal to run for public office. Oh, isn't it? We're one of the 7 states that they have a law in their book that says that it's illegal. So then we have that whole rule. So it's just, I think people like Gayle that put themselves out there. I mean, she didn't have to do that. I mean, I don't know if she was expecting the bullshit she got, but wow, I followed politics for a while, and it just was amazing, the vitriol.
Oh, for sure. It was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think she was expecting it, but maybe not quite to that degree.
Yeah. I mean, she mentioned a few things while we were down in Tennessee that just were appalling. I mean, it's like, seriously? Basically came down to, you've known this person for 30 plus odd years, and just because this person came out as you didn't, ran as an atheist, you no longer like them. I mean, it's like, and I've had that conversations with people. I said, when they find out I am an atheist, which I don't hide, and I'm like, so 5 minutes ago you didn't know I was an atheist. Now you know I'm an atheist. What's changed? How have I changed? I said, and that's what, not just her, but anybody that, comes out, I don't like using that word, as an atheist or LGBTQ or, anything that is not socially acceptable by the mainstream Christianities.
Oh, I found another one where they're going on about, oh, she's pro-choice and relentless.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, you may as well just write baby killer all over everything.
Like, being pro-choice is a bad thing.
Exactly. Oh, and they even says she served as executive director of Recovering from Religion, a nonprofit that helps individuals cross that bridge from believing God into being an atheist, which is exactly the
Exactly the opposite. Yeah. Nothing like misrepresent. There's a whole straw man argument. They're straw. Yeah, they straw manned what.
Now, if it would, well, I don't know. It depends on how to play the political game, but I'd be tempted to create a giant straw man and park it on the front lawn of my opponent's office or something.
Yeah, but the fact that she was willing to put herself out there, and any candidate that is willing, based on their sexuality or their gender identity or their political views, any demographic there, when it's not quote mainstream, you are appreciated. While she lives in Tennessee, I live in Pennsylvania, I did my little bit to try to support her.
Okay, you got to look at this. Look at that hideous picture they've used.
Oh my God, that doesn't even look like her. That looks more like Walt Heyer.
I don't know who the fuck it is, but it ain't Gayle.
No, that looks like Walt Heyer. And for those of you that don't know who Walt Heyer is, he is a gentleman who is anti-T in the LGBT and panders the trans regret theory.
No.
Yeah, that picture looks, unless I'm like being totally blind here, but I'm sorry, I have Walt Heyer on the brain right now anyway, so.
Oh, and in fact, at the bottom, it uses, that's why they've used that picture, because at the bottom, it says Jordan is, quote, dissatisfied with legislation that would protect our children by limiting which bathrooms transgender individuals may use in public schools. That's why they've used that picture.
So, question.
That's disgusting.
Do you look underneath the bathroom stall to see if the occupant has a dick?
No, I look under the bathroom stall to see if there's somebody in there. Like, I don't give a fuck who's in there. And I have shared, because I used to go to fetish parties and things. I have gone into bathrooms where people were just people. You didn't even bother trying to figure out what gender they were, if they were trying to express a gender. It was just, who cared? It was like, there to pee. Right?
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, would I personally feel safe in a male identified bathroom? Probably not. If I had to go really, really bad, I don't give a flying fuck. I'm going to go to the nearest bathroom I can find.
Yeah.
The joys of having a stroke, because I have no control.
Yep. But I mean, I would give a shit if I walked by and the stall was open and there was somebody that had a penis using the toilet. I wouldn't fucking care. I'd just be like, hey, would you like me to shut that door for you?
or in my case, I'm a lesbian and I must not like dick. Oh, it's scary. I happen to like male bodybuilders. I read bodybuilding magazines.
Yeah.
It's like,
no. I know. Well, and my biggest beef with that whole bullshit argument is because they're assuming that any person with a penis who looks different must be a sexual predator, right?
Yeah.
And anyone with a penis must go in the men's washroom. Therefore, all the sexual predators with penises you're sending to the men's washroom that are full of little boys. But who cares about them?
Catholic Church.
Pardon?
Catholic Church.
Yeah.
It's just it's crazy.
Fucking stupid. But what angers me is because of fucking idiots like that, people are legitimately afraid to go to the bathroom because they could get killed.
Yeah, and I know a few people, and I know you do because they're in common on our friends list that are afraid.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's like in the beginning of this whole argument, there was this one meme I saw. It was of a transgender male who looked very male, had a beard, cut body, but biologically,
right?
They would be, according to the distorted thinking of the Reich, be female. I'm sorry, I'd be, not that this person would ever do anything, I'd be a little bit more concerned about that, or a trans woman who looks more woman than I do.
The trans men that I've seen pictures of that are beefcakes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
And you want that, and I've seen that meme. It's like, they show some cut looking trans dude and they're like, you want this in the bathroom with your wife? Really?
Yeah, it's just mind boggling.
A lot of those dudes are damn hot.
I'll even admit it, and I'm fucking gay.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I just find, and going back to your debate with
idiot.
Okay, that works. It's like, for somebody who claims atheism,
yeah,
all his arguments, taken down the brass tacks, were religious. It basically boiled down to the ick factor.
I even said that on the Facebook side, and he said, I never said it was icky. I'm like, you might as well. Because he's all going on about, it's woman's role to have children and all this stupid shit.
According to whom?
Procreation, blah, blah, blah. Oh, nature. He invoked nature.
So nature is his God?
Evolution.
But yet nature demonstrates homosexuality?
Yeah, well, his homosexuality goes against evolution, so it's wrong. That's what he was saying.
How does it go again? We won't get into it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Fucking night.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna wrap things up. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep because
you didn't get any sleep.
No, because we had an ice storm and we have a metal roof, and the ice was melting and sliding off the roof in big chunks today while I was trying to sleep. And it sounded like a herd of fucking elephants going across the roof every 5 minutes. Like, seriously, like every 5 minutes.
Like, I do have to show this. I don't know if it'll show up.
The Bulletproof George Washington.
By David Barton. This is his claim because it's a book, and I'm saying that for a reason. Where he claims that it's a, quote, God-given right to own guns, and he supports it by using George Washington as an example. And I haven't read the book yet. I haven't really read anything beyond introductory material.
I wonder if Barton knows that George Washington used to grow weed at his farm.
Oh, I might use that. I'll have to explore that more.
I was there several years, a little over a decade ago there at Mount Vernon, but they have, he was into horticulture, and he used to grow, like, he would have a garden and he would divide it off into like little squares and grow all different kinds of plants. He, how to grow stuff. And he grew weed in one of those plots. Of course, when nowadays, when they recreate the garden, they leave that section bare and just say weed used to grow here kind of thing. But
yeah,
dude used to grow weed, man.
Yeah, but I got it today. In fact, I went down and I had to go get my drinks for tonight for the show, and it's like, but yeah, it's I've only read preliminary information. I haven't delved into the arguments that people use
Right.
against it to try to say it is unbiased as I possibly can. But yeah, thankfully it's
Small.
very small because I do have other Barton books that aren't, and they are a chore to get through. So
I can imagine with his dribbles, like,
yeah. So it's I just thought it was funny. It came just before. Well, I got it just before the show, so it's like, oh, how apropos. So
Well, I think it's a good place to wrap things up. And, good thanks to Gayle for dropping in and hanging out
yes.
with us. It was a lot of fun. It was good to see her again. And so tell everybody where we can find you, Beth.
Easiest way is on Twitter, Dune998. That connects to my blogs because I have been doing some counter apologetics of late. Probably because I don't have anything better to do. No. With the time off from work for the next at least month, I have more time to write. So I've been doing both my blogs now. Havoc and Chaos is the one which is primary politically motivated. And then I have what I call Relearning Counter Apologetics. It's basically a record, so to speak, of my battles against theists. I primarily focus on Christianity because that is what I am familiar with. And I will be honest, I don't know specifically what Buddhism says or what Hinduism says. I know just general overview. Case in point, Deb is much more well versed in Islam than I am, so I'm not going to argue from that standpoint. So my arguments are all Christian based, generally accepted Christianity, as I'm running into a word game currently. And you can find me on Facebook under Beth A. Hambridge. Please send me a note that it's due to the show that your interest. I've been getting a lot of very odd friend requests that, unless I have mutual friends with Deb or other people on my list that I know are, quote, safe, I'm not, that I know, I'm not going to just accept a random request anymore. Not that I really denied any. But please don't be a theist and then like bitch about, oh, you're against religion. Just read my fucking profile. It's pretty blatantly obvious.
That is such a pet peeve of mine. Do you know how many people I get that it is completely obvious they never read my fucking profile?
Yes.
Like, didn't even open it. Who does that?
My profile says blatantly I am an atheist and an anti-theist. I don't know how much more specific I can be. So yeah. I don't get the number of requests you do, although this week I have been averaging 2 a day, which is really unusual because usually I average 2 a month. Not that I'm complaining, but unless one of my other friends has you in common or you specifically state it's due to the show that you have an interest in what I post, I'm probably not going to accept you. I have no problem. If you follow me, that's fine. But due to reasons not related to religion, I do have my profile as locked down as I possibly can, i.e. combating anti-vaxxers. I had no choice. They were contacting my friends in workplace. So, but Facebook, Beth A. Hambridge, YouTube, Beth A. Hambridge. I haven't put anything out, although now that I have the book, that may change. Excellent. Where can we find you, my dear?
Oh, well, there's this little thing called Holy Crap, the Vlogcast, which is aired on Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. And you can find that at holycrapthevlogcast.com, run by Eugene Tribble and our motley crew of assorted panelists, where we talk about all different kinds of things. And you can find me with Full Quranic. That's www.fullquranic.com, where I read the Quran, so you don't have to. And trust me, you don't want to have to do that. we will be here next week, of course, and we will be talking to Dr. Richard Schloss, who is an atheist psychiatrist. And we're going to be talking specifically about a phenomenon called the involuntarily celibates, or the incels. They're a interesting group of people on the internet, mainly. They are largely active on Reddit, but they call themselves involuntarily celibate because basically they find great difficulty in finding someone to not only date, but as they would like to have sex with, and they spend an awful lot of time talking about that. So we're going to talk to Dr. Schloss about it. Main reason being that they also tend to be rather misogynistic and alt-righters and such. And I've had enough of right-wing nut jobs for the next while with Mr. Wolf guy. So yeah, we're gonna talk to Dr. Schloss about it instead, because he knows about brains and stuff. So, or psyches.
Liberal.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to.
Yeah.
May I interject one thing is concerning my plea?
Yes.
As most of you know, I broke my ankle last week. Projections are, according to general, is 12 weeks of being in cast, although it has been lessened to possibly in a month I could return to work, but I am out of work. So I do have a plea up on You Caring, and I do post it periodically on Facebook and Twitter and Google for donations, because I have no means of supporting myself, but I still have rent to pay. Luckily, that is my only bill. Buck, a share, anything would be greatly appreciated. To the people that have donated, I am overwhelmed by your generosity, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I wish there was a way that I could repay you. So if you have a blog or have a podcast or something you need publicized, please contact me. I will give shout outs wherever I can, whether it be on Facebook, Twitter, or even on the show. And thank you for donating. I greatly appreciate it. I would not be able to pay my rent without your help. So
Awesome. Excellent.
But yet the atheist community doesn't do any charity work.
No, never. Never. Yes, to have Jesus before you can charitable.
We won't go there.
All right, folks, I think it's time to wrap it up because I'm feeling weird, and that's probably because I'm tired.
And I'm really, really hungry because I haven't eaten yet today.
Oh, woman. All right, that's it. We're done. See everybody. Oh, and Morgan sends her regards, but she's up to her eyeballs in school, so, and it's coming up on finals, so we may not see
Oh, education, waste of time.
Which sucks, but we need all the sane lawyers that we can get in the world. So
just sane people.
Well, that too. Yeah. So we probably won't see her next week, but we'll be here with Dr. Schloss, and we'll see everybody then. And until then, yeah.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.